Welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, where sports and culture connect. Well, Indiana Fever fans and non-fans, I imagine, have been wondering what's going on with Caitlin Clark. What's the update? Will she be back? When will she be back? If she will be back? Well, the Fever has released some information, and so we're going to go over to that official release, and then I'm going to give you some of my thoughts about the whole thing. Not that I'm a doctor, I certainly am not, but I do have some thoughts about it. So let's go over first to that official release. It says update on guard Caitlin Clark. And as you can see here, it came out this afternoon. And it says, following a July 15th injury to her right groin, Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark underwent further medical evaluations earlier this week. The team can confirm that no additional injuries or damage were discovered through the evaluations. Clark will continue working with the Fever medical team on her recovery and rehabilitation, with the priority on her long-term health and well-being. There is no timetable available for Clark's return, and no additional details will be provided at this time. Any further updates will be shared as they become available. I find it interesting that this happens to be a picture here of Caitlin Clark being guarded by J.C. Sheldon, and we know what kind of defense we get to see when Indiana takes on Connecticut. But maybe that's just a coincidence. Let's just look over at X. The same information was posted on X, and we'll just take a quick look at that. And here we are on X with the Stranger Things logo. And again, it talks about the medical evaluations, no additional injuries or damage, and she's going to work with the medical team. And then it just says there's no timetable available for her return. Well, that's good news. I mean, it's not good news if you were hoping for, at this time, on this date, Caitlin Clark will take the floor again and she'll be 100%. We would love to hear that, particularly for her own health, her own wellness. Didn't get that information, but we did get the information that there are no further injuries or damage or anything like that. That, I have to say, is an answer to prayer. So good for Caitlin Clark for that. Now, we can tell from that release that the approach that's being taken is one that keeps in mind her well-being as well as her long-term health. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on this whole thing. Keeping in mind, I'm not giving any medical advice. Keeping in mind, I'm not qualified to give any medical advice because I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a nurse. I'm not any kind of healthcare provider. I'm not that person, that person who went to college to become an English teacher and somehow comes back with a medical degree. At least they act like they are every time somebody gets hurt. I'm not the person. I actually went to college to be an English teacher. So I don't have a medical degree, but I have observed sports for almost a whole lifetime, and I've played sports and I've dealt with injuries. In fact, I deal occasionally with a groin discomfort, and it's really tricky because there's no movement, there's no walking, running, jogging, anything that doesn't involve the groin, so it can be a little bit tricky. But just from my own observation and what do I think about this whole thing with Caitlin Clark, again, good news that there are no further injuries or damage or anything like that. Caitlin Clark is an athlete who goes all out. We saw what kind of workout she had in the off season, and the way she gets guarded in the WNBA, a way that nobody, and I mean nobody, has ever been guarded in the history of collegiate sports or the WNBA. It's just the truth. She takes a lot of banging and grabbing and holding and pulling, and your muscles are tight. You're embracing for impact. You have all these things going on when you're Caitlin Clark, and the officials are part of the problem, and so are the players. It's just the truth. It's the officials, of course, who should be making sure these things don't happen, but we know how that is. So whether it's a Caitlin Clark being treated the way she gets treated on the court, or it's any athlete at a high level, injuries often happen. Discomfort often happens. If this is a situation where there's no long-term possibility of her not being able to play, if it's a matter of discomfort, just about every player in every sport knows what it is to have certain kinds of nagging things that last throughout the season, especially at this point in the season, midway through the season, end of the season, but perhaps throughout the whole season. At times, it's difficult to find anyone who's not dealing with something. And not all of those things require those athletes to sit out. Sometimes, very often, I will say, athletes will play through certain injuries. Injuries, I reiterate, that are not affecting long-term play. Obviously, you're not going to play with some major knee injury, that's going to affect you long-term. What I don't know is this one of those situations where there's no further damage? So it sounds like there's no tear, there's nothing like that. Is it a situation where you kind of have to determine your threshold for pain? I know that there are people who say, well, Caitlin should absolutely sit out until she's 100%. You're probably hard pressed to find any athlete who's able to compete without any problems at all with 100%, because it's just rare, especially for professional athletes. And again, the way Caitlin Clark gets treated on the court, I know she's not used to in her career playing with injury. It's a miracle that she went through her first season without injury. So it may be a situation where she has to decide, am I able to play through this? Is this something that I can play through? Get on the court, play when I'm not on the court, get on the bike, ride the bike, whatever. If medical staff has said, this is not going to affect you long term, you have a really long off season. If you can play through discomfort during the season, you can recuperate easily. You got nine months or so in the off season to get this thing together. It's totally your decision. That it could be a situation like that. And in that case, again, this comes down to Caitlin, her threshold for pain, something that she's not used to on the court. God bless her. It's a great thing, as much as she's played, not to ever have missed time before this season. Except I guess one game or whatever way back in the day. Was it high school or something? I'm not one to say don't play at all if, again, this isn't something that the medical staff feels is a long-term kind of problem. It might just be like, listen, you're going to deal with this now, and then when you'll recuperate in the off season. So if it's a situation where it's just discomfort and she can handle it, then with the advice of those who know better than I would say that's a decision you would make. If it's something that could create a problem, a much bigger problem, then obviously she needs to wait until that's not a problem, a possibility anymore. And it's possible that this is all coming down to Caitlin. When I read that report, it sounds like it might be in her hands. It might be a decision. And so the timetable might have to do with her saying, okay, now I feel ready. Now, here's the thing to be mindful of. So much of this is psychological, especially when you've had an injury and then you came back and you had another injury, you have this. Sometimes it becomes psychological. Sometimes you are overcompensating because you are concerned that you're going to re-injure yourself. And so you play too much on the other side, which might explain why the groin injury went from the left side to the right side. Is it possible she was putting too much on the right side, which might be why she was not balanced, if in fact that's true, and it might speak to her shot being off. So if Caitlin can come back in a healthy manner and be psychologically well, then that might be something that she will want to do, even if there's discomfort and no risk of further injury. And when you say that, I mean, injuries happen. So it's even hard to say that. But a lot of this is psychological. A lot of times you see people with an ACL injury and they come back and it takes them a while before they are able to play all out. Not because the ability is not there, not because their body's not healed, but because mentally they're thinking, oh my God, please don't let this happen again. So that's something else that she might have to play through as well. And she'll make that decision upon the wisdom, direction of those who are speaking into her concerning her medical condition. Those are just my thoughts. When I read that release, it sounds like it might be on her to decide. And if there are no major threats of something more, then she might say, I'll deal with the discomfort, perhaps, if I have any, and I'll go for it. But we'll find out soon enough. Like they said, they're not going to continue to come back and say, we have nothing, we have nothing, we have nothing. When they have something, they'll let us know. Once again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving any advice, just telling you my observations throughout the years and my interpretation of that update. By the way, over on the second channel, Adrienne Ross Squared, I intend to do a video that highlights something Tamika Catching said. You know Tamika Catching. She played her entire 15-year WNBA career with the Indiana Fever. She's a legend, and she wore number 24, my basketball number. But she said in this article, and this is an old article I happened across, she said that it was hard for her being a part of this certain group to be in the WNBA. That it's difficult to be in this particular group and be in the WNBA at the same time. So we're going to get into that and how that relates to what she said, the WNBA, but also beyond the WNBA. So that's going to be coming. So be sure to be dialed into Adrienne Ross Squared if you want to check that out and turn your notifications on as well. All right. If you haven't subscribed to the Adrienne Ross Show, I ask that you do that. And thank you for those who are. I will catch you next time, God willing. God bless you abundantly.